Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting the like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. And let's crack on with today's first cheeky story. Much love, guys. Now, our first story comes from Sword Cat, and they also posted from another account as well, which was Cosmic Echoes 44 from the Am I the Arsehole Here subreddit. And it says, Am I the Arsehole Here because I didn't invite my father to my wedding because years ago he told me I was no longer part of his family. I'm 28 female, and I'll be getting married next month. I didn't invite my father to the wedding, but now he's trying to get in touch. I think I need to explain the context. Because it all started when I was 6 years old, when my parents got divorced after my dad cheated on my mum with my stepmother. After that, I spent most of my time with my mum, but during holidays and vacations, I stayed with my dad. When I was 8, my half-brother Jake, 20 male, was born, and whenever I was with my dad, I was forced to take care of him. When I started high school, I had to move in with my dad because my mum had to move abroad for work. This period was one of the hardest of my life. My stepmother wasn't a bad person. She tried to include me in things, but she was very submissive to my father. As for my dad, he always treated me like an extra in the house, someone who didn't really belong there. I was constantly responsible for taking care of Jake, and whenever he went out, he would only take my stepmother and Jake, never inviting me. One of the most painful experiences happened when I was 14. My dad announced that the whole family was going to Disney for vacation, but the day before the trip, he told me he wanted it to be a family moment, their first big trip with Jake. So I was left home alone. This had already become a pattern. Trips to the beach, zoos, or other outings always included just my stepmother and Jake, while I was left behind. My dad didn't like me going out with friends or inviting them over. He said teenagers together only cause trouble. And because he was controlling, he would call the house phone at random times to check if I was home. He also had a trusted neighbor who'd keep an eye on me to make sure I didn't have any visitors. When I turned 16, living with him, the feeling of being an extra only got worse. Everything I had experienced during vacations, the exclusion and sense of abandonment, became part of my daily life. Things came to a head when I turned 18. My dad got a promotion at work and decided to take a family trip to Europe. Since it was my last year of high school, I was excited, thinking I'd finally be included. But then he told me he didn't have enough money for a trip for 4, so it'd just be to celebrate Jake's 10th birthday. I had to stay home. That's when I snapped. I told him he was being unfair and that he shouldn't have given me false hope. I explained how it felt over the past years, and he called me ungrateful and spoiled, saying that I lived with him rent-free, which was a lie since my mum sent money to support me, and I did all the housework because both he and my stepmother worked late. The argument escalated and he kicked me out of the house, saying I was no longer part of the family, and not even his daughter. He literally threw me out and tossed my things onto the sidewalk. Luckily, a friend lived nearby, and I stayed at her place that night. The next day I went back to see if my dad had calmed down, but I found my things still on the sidewalk, and some even in the trash. My stepmother had kindly saved a few items for me and handed them over. After that, my dad never reached out, except to call and yell at me a month later, when my mum stopped sending him money for my expenses. A few months later I got into an engineering program in another state, where I met my now fiancé, Mark, 29 male. He was a senior and we soon connected, realizing we had a lot in common. We started dating, graduated, and now work in the same field, though at different companies. A few months ago, Mark proposed and I happily said yes. I have social media, but I rarely use it. I've had Instagram for about 6 years, but haven't even posted 10 pictures. I think one of my relatives must have told my dad about the wedding because about a month after I accepted the proposal, he reached out to me through Instagram, saying he was excited to help with the wedding. I was surprised both that he had messaged me and that he genuinely thought he would walk me down the aisle. I responded saying he wouldn't be walking me down the aisle because my stepfather would, and that the wedding would be small, just for my close family. After that, I blocked him. After blocking him, and inspired by reading Reddit stories, I expected calls, messages, and even letters full of insults like ungrateful or spoiled. However, the only thing I received was a letter delivered by Jake. Yes, we still have contact. In the letter, my father expressed how sorry he was. I won't copy the exact words, but to summarize, he said that after kicking me out, he lived a normal life with my stepmother and Jake. But when he saw pictures of my graduation with my mum and stepfather, he started feeling regret. He wanted to talk to me, but his pride held him back. He only decided to reach out now because he realized that his pride got him nowhere and that he wanted to fulfill one of the plans he made when I was born, to pay for my wedding and walk me down the aisle. Honestly, I don't know what to do. I moved on with my life, and his attempt at redemption after so many years feels a bit too convenient. Am I the arsehole for not wanting to include my dad in my wedding despite his apology? Notes, my stepfather is an amazing person. He always goes out of his way to include me in everything, and my stepsisters are wonderful as well. When he found out that my father hadn't taken me to Disney, he planned a trip for the next holiday and took me, along with my mother and sisters. This and 1,000 other reasons why I want to walk down the aisle with him. Edit 1. People are asking why my mum and stepfather left me with my dad and what their jobs are. My mum works as a programmer and managed to get a job abroad. She thought it was best to accept it, especially since she wanted to save up a good amount of money to cover college expenses for the future. My stepfather is a researcher and was doing his postdoctoral work at the time. The first person to talk to me was my older stepsister, 2 days after I was kicked out. She came to see me and even stayed for a few days, which I can barely remember because I was just crying. But I didn't move in with her because she lives in another state, and I was almost done with classes and final exams. So my friend and bridesmaid let me stay at her house. Her parents helped me gather my things and even set up the guest room for me. Now obviously Dad's an absolute arsehole in this situation, and quite frankly, why would you want him back in your life? What has he offered up to this point? Nothing. These are his regrets, and quite frankly, he has to live with them. That's the choices he made. Who would do that to your own kid? Absolutely disgusting. But the mum doesn't sit right with me in this situation as well. Obviously, I don't know the full ins and outs of their situation. She might not, but I'm assuming the mum knew of some of the situation when she was going to her dad's place and the way that she was treated. So then to leave her there to further her career and then not returning when she was thrown out of the house, I don't know, it's not sitting right with me. But Turmeric Ping says, not the arsehole, your biofather's regret are his problem, not yours. Your real father, your stepfather, the man who treated you as a father should, is the one who should walk you down the aisle. The other guy is just a bad memory to put behind you. Copper Feather says Biofather treated OP like a pet he didn't want. Stepfather treated OP like his third daughter. Biofather multiple times deliberately excluded OP from family trips. Stepfather went out of his way to include OP in trips. Biofather kicked OP out of his house yet still expected to be paid. Stepfather did not act like a douchebag. There is no contest here. Cutie Casey says you are absolutely not the arsehole. Your dad made his choices and completely shut you out for years, treating you like an outsider in his own family. Now that he wants to play the dad card because you're getting married, it feels more like a convenient afterthought than genuine remorse. You built a loving and supportive family with your mum and stepfather who actually care about you. It's totally valid to want them by your side on such a significant day. Your happiness matters, and you deserve to celebrate with those who truly appreciate you. Constructive No says, I bet it's because news of the engagement has spread and people have started asking him about his daughter's wedding. OP says he seemed genuine, but the only thing I can picture him being excited about here is finding ways to make this about himself again. If I were OP, I would totally keep no contact. It really doesn't seem worth whatever bullshit he's going to spew at the wedding and reception. If he truly were remorseful, then he wouldn't be assuming shit. He'd be reaching out and telling OP how sorry he was, that he missed her and that he wants to be there for her on the wedding and meet with her again beforehand. He would understand that it takes time to build a relationship back again and accept being able to attend the wedding as a guest. Luffy Direwolf says if he were remorseful, he could have sent her a check to pay for the wedding, an apology with an explanation of his regret, and no ask for himself whatsoever. So OP comes in with their update and says, I'm back with an update, but first let me explain why I'm using a different account. The account I originally posted from belonged to my friend. I'm not very active on social media, so I didn't create an account just to post something I didn't expect would get so much attention. I thought there would be at most one follow-up to share, whether or not I invited my dad to the wedding.